Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being with us this evening for our OWLA Public Forum for our December meeting. And so pleased to see all of you here. It's a busy time of year, so thank you for taking time. We put a lot of thought into the topics that we're offering with our public forums, and this is a very important one on biochar. And I'd like to ask Dana Hall here to take over and to introduce our presenter this evening. So Dana, thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Hi, everybody. This is Dana. I had the pleasure of meeting Doug now maybe 12 or 15 years ago. The overall topic I think that caused us to hit it off was closed loop systems like out in space or in a submarine, or in Doug's case, trying to close a loop for nutrients and so forth on his very large dairy farm, which is Spruce Haven Farm, as many of you know, south of Auburn, actually a Union Springs address. But Doug and I then collaborated for a number of years, and the main project that I remember, Doug, that maybe I helped on was, or else got in your way some on, was the manure digester that you designed that resides and is operational today, resides in the ground. And so perhaps when you show a picture of your farm, you'll even say a few words about that. But I don't want to take any more of everybody's time. So Doug, with great pleasure, I will introduce you as the principal or one of the principals of Spruce Haven Farm, a CAFO that milks 2,000 dairy cattle, Holsteins, and takes care of about 1,800 heifers, as I remember, Doug. So without further ado, the virtual podium is over to you.
Okay, great to see everyone. Know many of you personally, and certainly understand the importance of all the Finger Lakes water quality, but it's really remarkable how OWLA, with your organization, has become almost a nexus of lake science. So we interact not only with your group, but DEC and many dairy groups to try to figure out how to close the loop, as Dr. Hall said, the nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon, water cycle is a cycle of life. So we've tried to approach it comprehensively. And our mission at our farm is to provide the highest human nutrition with the lowest environmental footprint. And that's a fairly simple equation, but it's extremely difficult to create solutions for, especially on an economic basis. So a lot of what we learned, we went to Denmark, and let's see here, sharing my screen. Okay, can everyone see that okay?
Not yet.
Not yet. We see you.
Okay, I got mine on here. I haven't shared properly, I guess.
And Doug, you look rather Danish, so perhaps we are seeing your screen.
Let me share the screen again here. Sure. Okay, so
There we go.
you can see the presentation now.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we have 12 minutes or so. And this is just the opening slide. So the first question is always why? Why biochar? So obviously, as Dr. Hall said, closing the loop is farmers need additional tools. And I think Ann mentioned the word tool. There's a whole toolbox of things that we need. And this is potentially a new one, not maybe the total solution, but another tool that allow us to recapture and use the essential elements of the food life cycle for water quality, climate impact, and economic sustainability. We have a need. This is really the hot topic here in Charlotte is carbon sequestration, climate change. But there's certain areas of the country where water quality is really at the top of the list. But really, if you can recapture all the nitrogen, phosphorus, keep it on the farm and grow the next crop, it's going to be a win for everyone. We also have a need to store, hold, release the phosphorus, nitrogen on the fields so that nutrients are available when the crop is growing. That's been a big challenge for agriculture for many years. And we also would be nice to reduce the cost of distributing the manure. It's only 5% dry matter, so it's a lot of power, a lot of expense to distribute that manure over many acres and many miles. So if we can reduce the volume to distribute, that would be a step forward. And Dana, if I need to clarify something or ask questions, just jump right in and make sure we don't get ahead of anyone. So when I went to Denmark with developers, they, as a whole country, brought their nitrogen and phosphorus balance right down to very close to net zero. And so he said, well, how did you do that? They said, well, we have anaerobic digesters, and then we only apply the digested manure to the growing crop. So we began to take what they'd learned in Denmark and try to apply it here and on our farm. And it's taken 10 years, but one by one, the pieces of the puzzle have begun to fit. But this BioChar would be the added final step, I'd say, on a comprehensive system. So we have our digester running. We have renewable natural gas going into the pipe heading to Auburn. And so Dr. Lehman shows up at the farm. I never knew him as a professor at Cornell, but so I get on Google Scholar and say, who's Johannes Lehman? And at the time he had 85,000 citations. So I don't know if you know what that means, but it's hard to imagine how one scientist could have that many citations. And now he's up to 105,000. So he said, well, I got a grant for $1 million from NYSERDA. I'm very excited about doing this research. I need a spot to do it. Can I do it here? And I said, of course. And he was very excited to do that. So we've been trying to get it set up and operating. So he, for years, Joe had been telling me biochar is the answer. And I said, well, what do we do with all the water? And so Dr. Lehman said there's three things. One is that biochar is a way to take the carbon from the atmosphere and put it in the soil for hundreds of years. Well, that's a great climate change story. And it would lower our carbon footprint. It may increase the value of our milk. So there's a number of things that would be positive. So the second thing he said, biochar acts as a house for microbes. So this tiny little, it's charcoal basically, but the microbes that create soil health, the top 8 or 10 inches of soil, the microbes, a very complex community of bacteria, protozoa, earthworms. And so the biochar serves as a house to protect those for the winter time. So in the spring, when the crops are ready to grow, the soil comes to life and really activates the soil to a full healthy condition. I said, well, that sounds good. And then he said, if we can get the manure solids or digestate solids to 40% dry matter, from there to biochar is a net energy positive process. And I said, now you have my attention. You certainly don't want to put a huge amount of energy driving off water to make charcoal. So I said, all right, now we're starting to get excited. So that's the most extensive slide. So they aren't all this detailed. So Johannes Lehmann is on the upper right. He's a German scientist, but he spent his professional career at Cornell and mostly focused on international agriculture, which is probably why I never took one of his classes or got to know him. So these are the WHO's. Dr. Lehmann is the principal investigator, and NYSERDA is the funding agency. Yeah, I think you all know who NYSERDA is, I suspect. They also helped us fund our digester when we first put it in. And then Biomass Controls is a company out of Connecticut, and they had the pyrolysis equipment they said could be used for this research. Then Cuff Farm Services, many of you may know Stan Cuff. He's built quite an enterprise there on the west side of Auburn. And he's been instrumental in putting the whole package together so that it actually works on a dairy farm and then our farm. So if you don't know where our farm is, can you see my cursor? So you see Wasco Lake here and then Cayuga. So these are the fields that we harvest. It goes from Moravia to Cayuga, but mostly in this region is where we harvest the crops. And then this is my John Deere software that we use to manage the cropping systems. So this is our farm from a Google perspective. And then the Dumont operation is right across the street here. So this is some aerial photography we just had a couple weeks ago. This is from the south, so it shows our dairy. And here's Dumont's, and you can see the milk plant down in Auburn right here. So this view is from the northeast and shows the waste treatment. We call it the resource recovery system. So this section here is where we're trying to replenish, bringing all those nutrients, keeping them, and then making them available to the next crop. Any questions so far?
John, this is Ann.
Yes.
From the picture on the lower right,
Yes.
is this a covered lagoon? Are you
Yes.
using technology to cover up? Are you? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they'll show it. The next slide will show it a little better. So the manure, most of the manure is generated right in these barns. So it's pumped from there to here. And then it goes up into this barn where we separate the sand, which we use for bedding. Then we reuse the sand. And then the manure comes through this heat exchanger, which is right here. Can you see cursor? Yes. Okay.
Yes, Doug.
All right, good. So then it's heated up to 102 degrees here using the engine heat that's in this vessel right here. The manure comes down and here goes into the digester. This will hold the manure for 21 days. And there's 10 mixers here. And then it leaves here. So we're it's turning the organic matter into renewable natural gas. The gas comes out here, goes through this renewable natural gas upgrading system. First through the hydrogen sulfide scrubbers, then water vapor removal, volatile organic compound removal, and then reverse osmosis in this section right here. Then it goes out, gets odorizer put in and a little bit of propane. And it comes over to this where it's transferred to NYSEG right here. And then we sell the attributes, the carbon credits, environmental attributes at that point to California and to federal renewable RINs, they're called. So that goes in the pipeline and heads to Auburn. That's just a natural gas pipeline. Back over after the digester, the manure comes out here. It goes up into a solid separator. And then this is the BioChar pyrolysis unit right here. And it's a fairly small experimental one. And it's still being worked on to get it optimal. But any questions on this? I guess I mentioned, oh, the covered lagoon is here. We just completed that this fall. And there's several advantages of that. It keeps the rainwater out. It keeps the ammonia in, keeps the methane in, and it lowers the carbon intensity score of our farm, which raises the value of the gas. I see Ann has a.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I will be full of questions here, Doug. So the renewable natural gas pipeline to Auburn and then on to California, I think that's that for folks to think about what you just said, the reality of what you're doing. Now, may I ask, with this, can other farms, can other CAFOs bring to you their RNG?
Yes.
Can they add it to the system there? Oh, and is this like a gathering point then?
It's
Prince
limited.
Keith?
You can actually see this little unit right here. They've upgraded this so that the natural gas from the Allen farm will unload their renewable natural gas here, and it'll go into the pipeline here. We're kind of doing one farm at a time. We didn't want to just have a lot of activity here. It's kind of one step at a time. But yes, there's about enough capacity in this pipeline for about 10,000 cows worth of renewable natural gas.
And Doug, a number of the farms around you, other CAFOs, have digesters and are producing methane, correct?
Correct.
I
Yes.
have a question. Well, a comment first. This is Julie. I wonder what old McDonald would think if he came on a tour of your farm. Just the technology here is amazing.
Yeah. Oh, it's up to your group, you know.
Yeah, and I mean we haven't even seen a cow yet. You know what I'm saying? This is whole back
Yeah.
no pun intended backstage backdoor operation going on. I had one question. So I assume as the cows are doing their rear end work in those barns, and
Right.
you must have some kind of, you have a conveyor system, or is it people that are gathering up the manure to put into the
Yeah, I'm happy to explain all that, but I think we had a 15-minute time limit.
Okay. Yeah, I was
So-
just curious if you, like, are you storing manure? Is it a daily thing? So it's being stored somewhere, and is it a full 21 days in the digester and then all of it comes out, or is it a 21-day process where you're kind of adding some and taking some out as it goes? I guess.
Oh, cows never stop.
Yeah, I know that.
So we have alley scrapers in these barns, and they slide the manure down to the center, and then it goes across the barns, and then it's pumped from there up to here. And all these barns here are collected here, and that's pumped over to here. And that sounds really easy, but it's a really difficult thing to manage. We have a whole team of people that are really good at it. Also, we produce a little more electricity than we need to run all this. And so that extra electricity goes on the grid right here. So we're actually injecting electricity on the electric grid and the natural gas grid.
Doug, I think just for clarification, Ann was talking about things going to California. It's just the credits on the carbon, not any actual natural
Molecules.
gas goes there. Am I correct on that?
That's correct. But the pipes have to be connected from here all the way to California in order for that rule to work. So we inject a molecule in here, and then it's credited in California for the carbon credit. So the molecules don't transfer all the way to California. It's just a commodity at that point.
What's the size on your covered manure storage, and how many months storage do you have there?
The covered storage is 8 million gallons. This bigger storage is 10 over here. That's not covered. And this one over here is 2.5 million. So we have about 8 months worth of storage. And we're really happy to have all three empty this fall. Yeah, Gary ran a digester for quite a few years, so he knows the trials and errors of that. All right, well, so what is pyrolysis? That's the definition. If you know what that means, you probably know more than I do. Essentially is just a little box. It's about half the size of your refrigerator, and it's just like a burning chamber, and it burns with very little oxygen. And this is just a reference to the Layman Lab if you want to get on his website and learn more about it. And this is the pyrolysis. I kept looking for a better definition, but I really couldn't find one. So this is what comes out the little biochar machine here, these two little augers, and this is biochar. It's just charcoal, but it's made from corn stalks and alfalfa stalks, and things that the cow cannot digest in 24 hours. And then the anaerobic digester can't digest because of the fibrous nature, but it still has a lot of BTUs or energy in that. It allows it to use its own heat to dry the next batch. Joe might even be able to describe the process better. Any questions on this piece? So the challenge is the biggest challenge is to get the manure solids at the dry matter that's exactly the right moisture so that it is dried to 60% dry matter before it goes in a pyrolysis burning chamber, so that it doesn't get too hot or doesn't get run out of momentum. And that's a really tricky process. Rob is a full-time employee of Cornell, so he's really focusing his attention on overcoming that challenge. At one point, it got so hot that it actually melted the auger that was moving the manure through, so I had to rebuild that. We want to make sure that we don't have to add energy to this process, because that would be counterproductive. Did I hear a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, how hot does it get?
I should know that, but I don't, Dr. Joya.
Okay. Oh, thanks.
It's pretty much like your fire in your
Yeah.
your living room. But, and then the next step, and we're already thinking about this, my son's especially thinking ahead on this, is we need to have something about 5 times bigger to actually work on our dairy. And that's a $2 million investment. So we can't make that because we don't know if there's a payback, but whether the research funding can do that, or if we can lease one for a trial period, we're looking into those options.
So Doug, this is Dana. If I could ask a question now then?
Absolutely.
So I know you're producing now just small quantities of biochar like you showed in the previous chart.
Right.
But when there are larger quantities, what will you do with it?
Yes, I think I have a bullet point on an earlier slide says that. No, I guess I forgot to do that. So we're actually designing studies with the Cornell team of different crop experiments, like 2 corn strips, one that has biochar, one that doesn't, and we'll look at the yield difference. We'll look at the nutrient efficiency differences. We also have to bring in 3 or 4 other sources like pig manure, chicken manure, food waste, just so they have a good database to compare the different characteristics of the biochar from the various sources, and whether some blending of those would be an optimal system. We probably will do some testing at Cornell in the greenhouses on smaller plots, just to get some preliminary data back before next summer's growing season.
Doug, is that biochar, which when I felt of it is like, gritty charcoal.
Right.
do you incorporate that into this, or will you incorporate that into the soil on your fields, or spread it on top and it somehow permeates into the dirt, or?
Well, as far everything I've read, you do not need to incorporate it. It functions fairly well, whether it's on the surface or in lower levels. But and I think the earthworm activity that moves nutrients and that would move some of this material down in naturally as well. And when we've also heard that biochar increases the productivity of the digester. So maybe some of it would go into the digester, get more natural gas, and then the biochar is filled with nutrients. And then that can go out with our regular manure distribution system so that it would be really ready to help the crop grow. So there's many different permutations that will probably occur, but that's the purpose of this research for 18 months.
Okay, thanks, Doug.
Doug, can that be fed to the cows?
I've heard it may have some benefit there as well. I'm guessing that might be one of the last things we do, but it may absorb some of the methane that's produced in the rumen, but it would be a very low nutrient concentration feed. So, and I don't know how good it would taste either.
Doug,
Yeah.
is this part of an AEM plan where you're looking at the agricultural environmental management of this? And are there any guidelines when you do apply it to the land? It is kind of like a byproduct or a refuse. And does that fall into keeping it 250 feet from a body of water or a some form of a water that goes into this to the lake? How is that looked at?
Well, it's way too early to be considered a best management practice that would be applied throughout the New York state as a, the state engineer would have to look at all the data and then decide whether to add it to a best practice for farms to implement. But in our view, this would be a really nice tool that we could apply nutrients closer to the water bodies without a risk of losing them into the waterways. Because it's dry, it's more stable, it has more absorbency. So we view this as another tool to more fully distribute our nutrients from the cows without risking the watershed.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So Doug, this is Dana again. I don't want to monopolize the microphone here, but when does this do any harm to a stream or to a lake, or maybe even do the water body some good? I don't know.
Well, Wasco Lake has a filter for toxins, right? I think it's a carbon filter.
Oh,
And
yes, yes.
It's essentially the same material. That's amazing filtration power, because it absorbs it. I don't understand the biochemistry of that piece of it, but it's a very versatile tool that can be used in a number of different ways.
Yeah, thanks. That's a good analogy, good example, good reminder.
Doug, this is Peter Rogers. Just a question. How much biochar have you generated or manufactured at this point in time? I mean,
it wouldn't even fill up a pickup truck at this point, but
okay. Over what period of time is that, Doug?
oh, just a month.
Okay.
We did we had a tour. The International Biochar Association had our annual meeting near Geneva, and we had a tour of 150 people from 20 countries. I think some of you saw that in the newspaper. And that was pretty inspiring. There was a woman from Africa who had some of the best questions. She came up afterwards and shook my hand and looked me in the eye and said, "It's really an honor to be here."
Oh, great.
And we're standing there, it smells like a farm, but the potential of it is known globally, and people are anxiously waiting for the results that we generate here. And Dr. Lehman's reputation worldwide. What is learned in Cuyahoga County will be known worldwide in a fairly short amount of time. Yeah, I'd love to have you folks come and tour it sometime. Just to figure out, I doubt you want to do it in the winter. The winds get pretty difficult to deal with.
Well, Doug, this is Joe Lattimore. It's good to hear your voice and tell your story. I'm down here in Naples, Florida, where we got double trouble with water.
Right.
Well, we got the red tide out in the Gulf here. We got the blue-green algae, the toxic, and the freshwater.
Right.
Now we know we got what 42,000 dairy cows in Cuyahoga County.
Mhm.
We should be able to handle this problem, correct? And what happens when you take the milk to the milk plant? Don't you take the water out of that?
Yeah, it depends on the product we ship from the milk plant. If it's powder, all the water has to come out. And if
Yeah.
it's a concentrate, then half comes out. But yeah, that allows us to ship that magnificent nutrition that's in dairy powder. We ship it to 75 countries, mostly in Southeast Asia. So, and then my sons especially are really wanting to be able to clean all the water that leaves our farm so that we can reuse it,
Yes.
back into the herd. So it's just a cycle. And that's technically possible, has been for years, but the financial piece of it, it's not cost effective so far. But we were talking with a fellow here at this conference that they've implemented 2 in, I think, Indiana and Ohio, and they're building 4 more in Indiana. So they're looking for a less expensive way to clean the water. So that's something that would be a tremendous step forward too. Yeah, I think we can learn to manage the dairy farms, which deliver incredible number of high quality meals to people around the world, and water health or water quality in the Finger Lakes. And I know my colleagues in the farm community are very motivated to do that as completely as possible, because we want to keep the nutrients on the farm also. And we love clean lakes. That's why a lot of us moved here. It's just a beautiful area.
Well, in my opinion, certainly biochar can do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to, as people in this country, start to take care of this with biochar, whatever it costs, because it's got so many benefits.
Mm-hmm.
The benefits are unreal. It's a win-win for everyone. That's it. Thanks.
We
You're
have
doing
a
a good
couple
job.
questions.
I'm glad you took up this project on your farm. It's been 10 years that I've been pushing for this, as you know. I've been bugging you. But I'll leave you alone.
I'll come back anytime, Joe.
I will.
All right, I get a couple more hands up. Dr. Joe, yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the Cornell people have measured the any dioxins in the biochar.
I don't know. They have been taking some of the samples back. I'm not sure what they're testing for. I'm sure Dr. Lehman is very aware of any of the toxins that might exist in biochar. That's a good question to follow up.
Yeah, of course, the dioxins you can get in regular fireplaces and barbecue and stuff.
Right.
So it's common if you look for it. It's just a question of quantity. It seems like the worst problems when you get over 300 degrees centigrade or about 600 Fahrenheit, which might with your melting steel, but I don't know.
Right.
The worst problems in when people have tried it with sewage systems, and a lot of times the sewage systems have dioxins to start with just from contaminants you get in a regular municipal sewage system. We'll say it's a good thing. It sounds like it's got a lot of possibilities, and but gotta watch some of the chemicals. And it's
Right.
tricky because if you get really high temperatures, you can actually get rid of the dioxins, but if you
Mhm.
higher temperature, it's 300 degrees centigrade or about 600 Fahrenheit.
Mhm.
You might get more, but you just got to
Mhm.
see. It's complicated.
Yeah, I know there's the amount of length of time and the heat very much determine the characteristics of the biochar. So figuring out what is the optimum temperature and is part of the research to have the maximum benefit to the crops. And Dr. Hall.
Thanks, Doug, but I think Linda Vitale's hand was up before
Oh,
me. So
oh yeah, I see it. Yep.
I'll defer to Linda.
Well, I just wanted to thank Doug for his always open willingness to work for all of these new innovative methods. And you've put us on the map, our area, and the work that you're doing is so important. And I think I go along with everyone else and really wanted to tell you that we appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Linda. Appreciate that.
We really do.
I just ever since I was a kid, I just liked science. I did for my senior year, I did a paper on solar energy. And I'd read Nature magazine and that Science Digest. Probably Dana and I were both a little strange that way, right?
Well, that's strange in a good way. And I think you're in good company here because all of us care so much about the environment and the clean water, the clean air, and the farms and all of that together. So thank you again.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Doug, this is Dana. So you right now are, I think, in Charlotte, Virginia, near Charlotte, Virginia, at a very large agricultural sustainability conference.
Yes.
And I wondered if biochar is a discussed item on presentations or amongst, during coffee. Is biochar discussed there?
Yeah. I haven't heard it presented, but I haven't gone to all the presentations. There's too many to actually attend them all, but in person concentrate or conversations with people who are really on the cutting edge, they definitely are interested, want to know. They're excited to hear that the research is going on. And yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Dustin is probably more knowledgeable about this than I am. So he's had a lot of discussions with different people while he's been down here. Okay, Julie, I think.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to echo Linda's thanks. I don't grow my own food, but I'm very happy to eat what somebody else did. So I really do appreciate you also. I had a couple of questions. One, were we lucky to happen to hit this? If I'm understanding right, that you just started turning this thing on a month ago or so?
Off and on, yeah. It's hard to start up, and then they'll go steady state for a day, and then we don't really dare run it at night. It's not fully automated yet. We're afraid we'll burn the farm down. So, but
Yeah.
we're meeting next week, and so he's going to train our team how to run it. So once we switch it into the automatic mode, hopefully we'll be running day and night, and barring calamity, then we'll start to have some significant volumes generated.
And the long term, well, first I wanted to ask, you said it's net energy positive if you get the right state sustainable. How do you do that? How do you get it started? What is it? Is it a first batch, right? So how do you get that?
You want to join us next week?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to.
No, they just start with wood bark or wood chips, pellets to build the temperature up, get it up to a critical temperature, and then they start the auger of the solids, and then they capture the heat from the biochar process in both hot water and hot air. The hot water goes down through auger that has a stand cuff actually built it. It's a 2-layer auger, so the heat goes down through there and it heats up the manure solids coming up the auger. That drives out moisture, and then the hot air goes in and drives the moist air out. So it's never, as far as I know, it's never been done, so.
Wow. And then it sounds like there's gonna be discoveries made over the next couple of decades, at least of what scaling you can do and what uses it can be put to and what can
Right.
feed it.
Right.
So at the moment, it sounds like you got this, I'm all fascinated by your anaerobic digester. I want to know more about how that works, but this
Yeah.
would supplement that to get to the parts that
Yes,
the digester can't handle.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so it's a two-pronged system, I guess is one way
Mhm.
to put it. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to ask. Oh, I was also wondering, it's a weird mind. I was thinking, can earthworms eat biochar? Would it go through their
Oh,
little gut tube and
Earthworms.
yeah,
So,
would they be able to? And so I was looking it up while you were talking, and they said they
Yeah.
don't know if they can process it, but it might improve soil pH to a place that they like it better.
mhm.
So I was just I was curious about that. Like you put this in
Well,
the
I'm
soil,
glad you
like, what
mentioned-
really happens?
Dr. Hall, I don't know what your time limit is. I'll keep asking questions as long as people want to keep talking, but earthworms, another really interesting topic. It's Tim Vesnan in Cuyahoga County did a lot of work on it years ago. I don't know if he's still trying it, but this fellow that was a CEO of a national company, and I became friends at these meetings, and he's focused on that now. And he asked if he could do a research trial on our farm with earthworms, and he really knows the science. He was the leader in the state of Washington for years on the whole environmental sustainability movement, and he says it's amazing. It's almost like a biochar thing, that the things that earthworms can do if you have the right kind and the right environment. That's quite exciting. So
I just learned in the past year that they're not even native to the United States. The type that I grew up thinking, save the worm off the sidewalk. That was a creature that was not from North America, and it's not the way that trees and forests, the litter on the ground is going to be digested. And I saw my first jumping worm this year, so I'll never forget that. But anyway, I don't want to get off topic too much, but thank you.
So folks, I promised Doug that we wouldn't chew up too much of his evening, and we maybe are approaching that limit, but Doug, maybe you can answer Nancy Hart's question. I see her hand is up, and then we'll let you off the hook.
I was just curious, you said that so far you've produced about a pickup truck load of biochar. How much effluent went into producing that? How much manure?
I would say the drop in mass is maybe 2/3. And I haven't operated myself, but that's pretty close.
Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, so everyone, let's thank Doug for his time and presentation and patience in answering our questions. And always a pleasure, Doug.
Pleasure's mine, Dr. Hall, and all the group from OWLA. Keep up the good work.